Graffiti is pretty much a voice for the voiceless. Graffiti is learning about cultures and subcultures. It's learning about the communities that you're in when you're moving around. It's a hobby and it's a field where we're self-taught. We're teaching ourselves how to move around in the streets. We're teaching ourselves what neighborhoods are good and what neighborhoods we can go into and do different things and what neighborhoods you can't.
It took a while before graffiti was an international thing, like it is today. That's another one of those things that kind of, I think because of the internet, it helped really send this thing worldwide. Early days, there were just American graffiti and European graffiti. And the difference, in my opinion, European graffiti was influenced by fine art.
The US is more into old school kind of graffiti. I think that in Europe we have different style because it comes from another artistic background.
American graffiti comes from vandalism and bombing the system, so the intent behind the work was completely different. Now it's kind of spread all over and you have these two worlds or factions within the graffiti community. You have the bombers and you have the painters.
I think the US is the place where the graffiti starts and everything is still so old school. I think the US thing is more, we can say, real somehow.
It's almost a different culture. One of the things that I loved about the early graffiti culture, it was more of this thing of word of mouth. It was more of this thing of apprenticeship. It was to understand or access graffiti, you have to have a direct contact with somebody that was in that work. You couldn't just stay on your own and see all the graffiti and understand. So every area had what we call an OG. He was, he's been doing it the longest, and he was kind of like the grand wizard in your local area. He disseminated the information and he had people that he mentored. So you could almost travel, once you got a sense of that, all of a sudden when you travel the local landscape, you could start to see the similarity. Is tagging a bad thing or no? Absolutely not. For me, coming up in the early days of graffiti, for example, really helped me understand that, because when I first got into graffiti, I was impressed by the more refined graffiti, and I didn't understand tagging, but over 20, 30 years of being in the culture, all of a sudden you start to understand tagging is actually the foundation to graffiti. Everybody starts out as a tagger.
Graffiti is all ego-based. The harder it is to get to a spot, the more respect you get from other writers. There's always a way to get to a spot. The harder the spot that you can get, the more respect and the more chances that it will last longer. The city typically doesn't want to go after spots that are harder to get to. It just, financially, it doesn't make sense. So you start learning what spots will run longer than other spots.
In my case, I think most of us, most of street artists or street muralists came from graffiti. You can be a canvas painter or a mural painter, and if you want to paint murals, you have to do it in some point illegally as graffiti art. So graffiti helps to, I don't know how to say it in English, but to go forth with your career.
The time and the experiences that you get from being somewhere with your brothers and your sisters, walking down miles of train tracks or walking through miles of woods in hopes to find a wall or something that you can paint, and not knowing if there is a wall, there's nothing that can take that feeling away from you. Knowing someone may never see what you paint, but the experience that you had that day will follow you for the rest of your life, and also follow the people that you went with for the rest of your life.